For so many years I went there and had the gallery there. I also used the library there, the Huddleston Library, and chatted with Carol Kovar. I don't know if any of you know her, but she knew everything that was going on in the city, and she was very chatty, so those were all fun times. I wrote this particular piece a while back, so we have to close our eyes and kind of see Old Town Hall as she was, not the hateful picture now with all the scaffolding and just looking so sad, very sad to me, but hopefully all go well and she'll be beautiful again. So keep that in mind as I read this one. She stands there so majestically, commanding all to admire her. Her large, round, white columns letting you know of her importance. And those steps you must tread to enter her. Of course she must have them. She could not be at street level as all those other ordinary buildings are. After all, she has graced this spot in what was first known as Providence and is now known as Fairfax, nigh 120 years. I wonder if those who saw her when she was new were also so impressed with her dignity, her beauty. Did they peer from her long and oval windows at what was taking place below and around her, as we do now? Were important decisions made at important meetings there? I have seen her and been inside her many times. I have witnessed her during times of bright sunshine, times of falling snow, times of cloudy dark days, and times of stormy thunder and lightning-filled skies. Through all of these, she has maintained her stance, steady and with calmness. She came through a fire once. Oh, so many people were worried about her then, this building which so many people love. Flames tore through her roof. Brave firemen came to her rescue. The fire was quelled and the building saved. Old Town Hall has been the scene of many happy events, weddings, anniversary celebrations, receptions, parties, concerts. She has seen times of excitement, election results being tallied and winners being declared, a solar eclipse watch, a gala. But during times of sorrow, she can also be a place of remembrance and comfort, a place where families and friends gather to reminisce about loved ones who have passed on. On her upper level resides the Huddleston Library. The library was started in the 1940s. Shelves around the room hold books published many a year ago to fairly recently published books. Here you can find an abundance of mysteries, the library's specialty. Those are accompanied by books of fiction and nonfiction and poetry and art and history. Even some books for young readers can be found. The upper level is also home to the Fairfax Art League's Old Town Hall Gallery, a co-op of local artists. Upon 7 art flats are artworks of many media, including watercolor, acrylic, oil, collage, pastels, mixed media, and photography. There are representational pieces and abstract pieces. There are images from near and far and from one's own imagination. There are art receptions held, and sometimes at those receptions, the lilting sounds of the harp could be heard, or maybe the lively sound of an Irish music group, or perhaps the notes from a piano. Did Joseph Willard ever dream his gift to the town of Providence and ultimately to the city of Fairfax would still be pleasing to its citizens all these many years later? Who knows? But I bet he would be delighted to know what I have told you, that this wonderful gift continues to be a beautiful, majestic, vibrant building that is loved and appreciated by those who pass by it and enter into it. It's called Hiding from the Coronavirus. The virus popped out from nowhere. It chose the season of spring. Now spring is grass growing, flowers emerging from the ground, trees leafing, birds chirping, lambs lambing, cows calving. Spring, the season of life. But the virus brought death. Then too, spring is the season of Lent, that time of forgiving, helping one another, giving thanks. It's the time when Jesus brought life from death. Of the 4 seasons, the virus chose spring. We were sequestered in our homes, hiding from it. Our days changed. Our routines changed. The days went by quickly despite the fact that we were by ourselves, contained in our homes. A good bit of our time was spent hearing and viewing news on the television, from the radio, from the computer, from our phones. The news of the pandemic was unrelenting. Thoughts of family, both close and far, across the globe, were always with us. There were phone calls, text messages, emails, WhatsApps to family and friends. We needed to check on each other. We needed to know loved ones were okay. Prayers were forever on our lips, invoking God to help us, to spare us. There were prayers of thanksgiving upon hearing someone was okay, for having a spouse sharing this unfamiliar time with you, for having a home that is comforting and protective, for having food to nourish you, for enjoying sleep that refreshes you for yet another day. There was the pull of the outdoors. The typical spring days were best, warm with clear blue skies to bask in. You felt compelled to look out of your doors and windows on grass, trees, plants, flowers. You looked for the birds, the squirrels, and chipmunks. All of nature, with its abundance of life, was calming, restful. You breathed in fresh air. Working in the yard was a salve for the soul. You also caught some normal life out there. Cars going by, little ones and babies in strollers, people walking their dogs, and families forming a parade as they rode their bikes. And oh, how good it felt to view smiles or hear laughter. You went to church at home. You realized you no longer wore earrings or lipstick. You wore your old around-the-house clothes, while your dresses and skirts and high heels remained in your closet. You filled your days with long-planned, never-done projects. Closets were clean. Piles of photographs were viewed with memories of those times. Old, stacked magazines were read. Bookshelves were perused, with books to read chosen and books to discard identified. The sound of airplanes overhead was mostly missing, and yet the sound of helicopters flying overhead was increased. Familiar sounds were welcomed. Lawnmowers outside, the click of the mailbox as the lid fell back down after mail was deposited, and especially the trio of chimes in my yard. They seemed to play their music more often and louder. They sang of hope and healing, which was exactly what we desperately needed. Thank you.
The country's development. So here we go, American Tall Talk. This is 3 pages, so bear with me. Tall talk has been pervasive in the good old USA. And just how did it come to be that way? To express our dissent with the meddlesome Brits, to boast of our progress and display our wits, from Jamestown to Plymouth Rock, where machetes were locked in pillory or stock. The Indians gathered for a powwow to bury the tomahawk or wawa avow. In times of yore in the antebellum South, corrected folks might say, well, shut my mouth. plantation life epitomized by Washington and Lee, as Scarlett retorted, well, fiddly dee. From Paine's Common Sense to the Declaration of Independence, we challenged the Brits to put up their dukes. Our forefathers wore not wigs, but perukes. From Manifest Destiny to 49ers Rush for Gold, Nova Anglicans upstate and abandoned the cold, called out settlers or outlivers as they headed west, intent upon fulfilling their quixotic quest. From east to west and north to south, tall talk expanded by word of mouth. Western pants were called trousaloons. Large round biscuits, Twain dubbed them moons. Sea Island Gullah gave us kumbaya, a mix of Creole and that African blah. Up north, the ill were ramble cropped. Down south, it meant you were totally crocked. You could be hornswoggled or bamboozled. Cheated if the former, the latter meant confused. Catawampus was a mythical beast or wildcat cub. You could have a hankering for some grub. Waldo's self-reliance was the golden rule, embraced by the populace, even taught in school. We were advised to love many, hate few, always paddle your own canoe. From the very uncivil Civil War, with rebel yell and Lincoln's fourscore, through Reconstruction, the era of Jim Crow, tall talk was a melting pot for settlers on the go. Then as our history turned a page, we slippered into the Gilded Age. Robber barons, Boss Tweed's Tammany Hall crew, Edith's Age of Innocence, Susan B's WCTU. One local rag was prompted to chide, our government was teetotaliciously flunksified, or totally worn out, to translate. Then an event that determined our fate. The war to end all wars came to pass. With grenades, mortars, and mustard gas, our doughboys fought on Flounders Fields in makeshift trenches, their only shields. Then came the 20s with a youthful roar. Flappers did the Charleston, the Lindy Hop, and more. Prohibition confiscated our anti-phlegmatics. Public reaction was swift and dramatic. Jazz Age, Depression, Dust Bowl, New Deal, Good Times and Bad featured on our newsreels. Soup kitchens, bread lines, Oakey's Westward Path, F. Scott's Great Gatsby, Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath. World War II began with a blitzkrieg. Josephine and Spy Girls, sexpionage intrigue. Allies and Axis, Nazi and Gestapo fears. Churchill's promise, blood, sweat, and tears. Cold War and Red Scare, post-World War II. Eastern and Western blocs made their debut. CIA, KGB, Bond's MI6, each with their bag of clever covert tricks. Civil rights, Bay of Pigs, Cuban Missile fuss, Emmett Till whistles, Rosa Parks up front in the bus. sit-ins, riots, freedom rides. Equality was the theme. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream. From Sputnik 1 and 2, with Laika aboard, the Russian strong delivers historic soliloquy. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. The Vietnam Baco was not far behind. Want somebody come on in? Hippies, flower power, Woodstock, Haight-Ashbury, Gulf of Tonkin pretext, My Lai, Kent State tragedy, Agent Orange, Viet Cong, offensive known as Tet, demonstrate, evacuate, homeward bound Nam vet, Ron's Reaganomics, Kissinger's detente, neocons and Watergate, Nixon's I'm not a crook. .com and housing bubbles in with a burst. 9/11 terrorist attack was by far the worst. War on terror, Iraqi shock and awe, Abu Ghraib abuses, international law, Great Recession, tech explosion, hyper-connected social media, memes, hashtags, and mobile device, cell phones for all if you had the price, internet acronyms, adds to our vocabulary, GTG, got to go, be right back, BRB, BTW, by the way, let me know, LMK. To the ethereal cloud and cyberspace, can the baby boomers keep up with the pace? Blockchain, 5G, the Internet of Things, only the walks know what tomorrow brings. However, for sure, we all know this truth, for tall talk and slang, we can count on our youth to create a new dictionary with each generation. Tall talk will always thrive in our nation.
Padma, for the invitation to come tonight. We came to your opening here, and we're very excited. And it's wonderful to see all of you. You are continuing to carry on the spirit of the Fairfax Art League, and that's very important. It struck me in the first reading, and I'm sorry I don't remember your name.
Carol Caputo.
Carol. Old Town Hall, to me, has a very special place in my heart. And I am so pleased, I'm a member of City Council, that we are finally restoring it. As many of you know, a few summers ago, one of the pillars managed to fall over in the middle of the night. They caught it on camera. But that led us for an opportunity to really do an in-depth analysis of the building and look at things that needed to be done to preserve it for the future. And I'm very excited that work has started. It's going along. I don't recall the exact date it will be done, but they're making great progress on not only making sure those pillars are going to be around for years to come and hopefully not fall over, but also some of the important things in the building that need to be fixed and repaired for the future. So I hope your poem tonight or your reading is a prophecy of things to come and how important that building will be for future generations, because it's been important to me in my time in the city, 40 years now as a member of City Council, to make sure that is preserved and protected for community events, for weddings, for all the kinds of things that are so important to us. And the library, I've been to a number of things there, and it's really been inspirational to go up there and to feel a part of that history that sort of exudes from the walls. I think it's really a wonderful, incredible building. The other thing I wanted to mention tonight, and I was really inspired today, our community has been around for many, many years, and many of you know the history and the background of Providence, Fairfax Courthouse, and the City of Fairfax. We are changing, and it was, I think, exemplified by right before we went on recess, which is in the month of August. Our last meeting in July, or maybe it was the second, no, I guess it was July 12th, we voted on a number of recommendations from a group in the city to look at changing some street names in the community. It was not an easy decision. It was one of the most difficult decisions I've faced as an elected official. We voted to change 14 street names that were tied, some of them to the Confederacy, some of them to a period of time in our past that was not very pleasant. But in my remarks that night, I shared that I've been a resident, my wife and I and our family, for 40 years in the city. We moved here in 1980. When we moved here, Fairfax City was a different place. It was 94 or 96% white. It still had a lot of, with all due respect to the Southerners in the room, a lot of Southern history. It felt like almost like a Southern small town. And there are aspects of that that are good. But today, we are a very different community than we were 40 years ago. We are less than 56% white. Our population is very diverse. We have a whole range of new ethnicities in our community, a whole range of new people who've moved here. And they find this community exciting. Today, I went down and observed the move in of almost 800 students to what's called the lofts, which are new apartment buildings. I'm sorry?
The flats.
The flats, I'm sorry. I keep calling it the lofts. They're similar. The flats, thank you, Sharon. Behind Courthouse Plaza. And I looked around at the new students that were arriving. These are primarily George Mason students. I'm not undergraduate, maybe some graduates mixed in. There'll also be 2 policemen living there, which is probably a good thing. But the diversity and the whole different segment of population moving into the city. And I thought, there are 2 ways to look at this. Either it's more people moving into our beloved community of Fairfax, or it's an opportunity to really welcome the new generation. And I hope we as a community can really welcome that, because it's the future. Our future is very different from what many of us grew up with. And I'm sorry, didn't remember your name either, sir, but
Phil.
Yes, Phil. So much of that history you read, I think for all of us, was reality we grew up with. You know, growing up in the 40s and 50s and going through all that turmoil that we faced. But today we're in a very different place. And I think it's going to be an exciting future for the city. And I was really excited to see the interest these young people had in our community, and I think they will. And I hope there's going to be a groundbreaking on September 28th. I hope some of you will go. It'll be at 5 o'clock. It'll be announced. It'll be in some of the city notices that go out up at Willard Place to officially do the ribbon cutting and the groundbreaking. And I'm hoping many of the students will be there to get to know you, get to know us. Because the sooner we can make them feel a part of the community, the better off it's going to be for all of us. So I'm sorry it took so long, but it was a pleasure to be here tonight to hear what's going on. I want to look at some of the new works that are up and hope that we can continue to have great participation in your group. Thank you.
Thank you.
If they need any artwork for their wall.
I don't know whether that is in the plans. Do you know anything on that in the Commission on the Arts that is?
I know that the Commission on the Arts is plumping very hard for it, and have made our case very clear and very articulate to both council and the planners
Okay.
and the architects. And they have gone back to the drawing board and have made a couple of offers to get back to us during the summer, which didn't materialize.
Okay.
Now they're saying in fall.
Okay. I will follow up and
And
see if we can find out what's going on.
And we have asked for dedicated performance
in
and exhibit space to be included in the plan for the revamp, amalgamation.
Well, it
New
would give,
community center.
it would give Fairfax something for people to do other than just come here and eat and leave.
Right.
When the Fairfax Art League at one point had their gallery up on the plaza, right next door to,
The wine house.
the wine house.
Yes, getting
We
wine.
got so many people in and out.
But that was a private deal, Catherine.
Yeah.
If you remember, I
Oh,
did
yeah,
the
I
private
know,
deal
but I'm just
with
pointing-
the, yeah.
My point being that, if there was a space like that,
Yeah.
Ollie was Artist Studio. We had an art walk in the downtown area. That would bring people here, would bring people, and they would eat in the restaurants.
As we talk
Right
about,
now, there's nothing to do.
as we talk about development and we talk about leases and so forth, we can't help but always keep coming back to the notion of dedicated space for the arts.
Mhm.
Without it, there's this constant homelessness for the performing arts and for the visual arts that they're, okay, while this sits empty and still isn't leased, we can be here.
Right.
And, when nobody else is using the stage for a wedding reception, we can be there. Or if there's a community center, we can be there in the multipurpose room for a performance, provided we don't need anything like scenery or dressing rooms or makeup space or prop storage or anything like that. Dedicated space is what we need. That's the thinking that we have to. Myself. But I do have an association with it. I think we all know that when soldiers, and by the way, bear with me, Carol, bear with me, Joe, bear with me, Padma, and feel free to play on your phones or whatever you want, because all of you are already familiar with this. I think that when soldiers write home from the battlefield, even though it's certainly not every single time that they articulate, this is what I want you all back home to know in case I don't come back. But I think it's more often than not there in whatever they write. This particular letter, which is somewhat dated, was written by a 27-year-old lieutenant who was a communications officer in the U.S. Army Air Corps, who was deployed just in time to leave his bride of 13 months and his firstborn child of 1 week to go to the European Theater of Operations. And it goes like this: My darling daughter, today I received your Valentine. And even though I know Mommy sent it for you, it affected me so deeply that I had to sit down and write you for the first time. Little daughter, you were born into a world gone mad. Human beings are pitted against each other in the bloodiest war known to man. Thousands, yes, millions of people are each day being killed, murdered, driven from their homes, and left to die of starvation, want, the horrible diseases that follow on the heels of war in all its ferocity. All of the beauty which is possible in this world of ours is completely blacked out by the bloodiest carnage in history. It is a revolution, my dear, a revolution against ideas and principles, even as you rebel when Mommy tells you to do something you don't want to do. You are too young to realize the significance of these words or even their meaning. And it is my nightly prayer when you are old enough to understand, the necessity for war will be forever banished from the earth. It is not my intention to give you a lecture in this letter on why wars are fought and how terrible they are. Wiser men than I have attempted to explain this and failed. I want this to be my first talk to you as your daddy. I want to tell you all the things every daddy tells his daughter or son. In this world of ours, there are three things that are more important than anything else. They are all based upon one thing, and that one thing has more power than anything conceivable by man. It can build and wreck empires, nations, fortunes, and even the world. That one thing is possible in you even now, as small as you are. And it will be possible in you and grow stronger as you grow in size and maturity. The one important thing, my daughter, is love. And the three important things which are based upon love are love of God, love of parents, and love of freedom. Always throughout your entire life, you must try to develop in your heart these three loves. Without them, your life will be empty and impossible. With them, anything and everything is possible. They can inspire you to attain the highest goals. You will be a woman envied and admired, loved and hated, but you will be a woman of virtue. The most important of these things is love of God. You were made to love God and serve Him. He is your guiding light from the day of your birth to the hour of your death. In His image and likeness, in His name, and with His divine grace, the gates of heaven will be eternally open to you, and peace and happiness will be yours forever. So love God, my daughter. Love Him with all your heart. Rest assured that in this you can never be wrong. The next of these important things is love of parents. Of this there is not much I can say, except that it ranks next in order to love of God. Mother and I are the two people in this world who are closer to you than any others. It was our love that made you, and therefore you hold our greatest affections. All of our love is for you. All of our thoughts and actions are for you. We will never fail you in any way as long as any of us live. You in return can give us happiness above all else by your love for us. The family should be modeled after the Holy Family, of which you will learn later, and in it lies the strength of the world. And the last of these three things, my daughter, is love of freedom. It is because of this that I and millions of men like me are now engaged in this bloody war. This seems contradictory to what I have been saying, and you may be confused as to how I am able to speak of love and war in the same letter. Perhaps it may explain to you if I tell you that there are some people who do not believe in love of God and love of freedom as we do. These people are trying to make all the other people in the world believe as they do. But we can see that they are wrong, and that they would try to destroy all we believe in. So we are fighting them in order that you, my darling, and all other little girls and boys like you, may grow up to believe in what is right. And rest assured, little one, that Mother and Daddy will always teach you what is right. Never will we, by word or deed, lead you wrong. Hold freedom as one of your most precious possessions. And remember that Daddy spent many lonesome hours separated from you and Mother, because I believe and love freedom, and want it to belong to you and Mother and everyone else in the world forever. There are many other things I would like to tell you, my little one, but time is so short now I cannot. You will one day be a fine, beautiful girl like your mother, and I hope you will remember my words in this letter, and that they will help you to make your life more simple to lead, more lovable to others, and more livable to you. I love you very much, Daddy.
Oh.
So I said I did.
15. There was a young black man, Freddie Gray, I think his name was, that was killed while in custody of the police. And the riots that took place afterwards and the whole thing I was just very upset, and I wish that I could do something, and I couldn't really think of anything to do. I didn't think that one white lady going to Baltimore was going to help anything. And so what I did when I did a painting called Baltimore Mothers, and I wrote a poem called Baltimore Mothers. Baltimore mothers, come out tonight. The air is warm, the moon is bright. Your sons are all dead. They were shot on sight. Baltimore mothers, come out tonight. Baltimore mothers, come out tonight. Come share your pain at this terrible sight. And scream to the world, my son is dead. He was shot on sight. Baltimore mothers, come out tonight. Baltimore mothers, come out tonight. The air is warm, the moon is bright, crying for justice, crying for right, crying that no one's son should be shot on sight. Baltimore mothers, come out tonight. And on a lighter note, I was in the hospital this week. It was a false alarm, and I was only there overnight, but during that time I had so many different doctors and nurse practitioners and poking and prodding and listening to my chest and asking me the same questions over again, and it made me think of a poem in A.A. Milne's Now We Are Six. And it's called Sneezels. Christopher Robin had weasels and sneezels. They bundled him into his bed. They gave him what goes with a cold in the nose and some more for a cold in the head. They wondered if weasels could turn into measles, if sneezels would turn into mumps. They examined his chest for a rash and the rest of his body for swelling and lumps. They sent for some doctors in sneezels and weasels to tell them what ought to be done. All sorts and conditions of famous physicians came hurrying round at a run. They all made a note of the state of his throat, and they asked if he suffered from thirst. They asked if the sneezels came after the weasels, or if the first sneasel came first. They said, if you teasel a sneasel or weasel, a measle may easily grow. But humor or pleasel the weasel or sneasel, the measle will certainly go. Sorry, I can't get the page. They examined they expounded the reasons for sneezels and weasels, the manner of measles when new. They said if he freezels in droughts and in breezels, then fleseezels may even ensue. Christopher Robin got up in the morning, the sneezels had vanished away, and the look in his eyes seemed to say to the sky, now how to amuse them today.
Yes, I'm hoping my granddaughters will enjoy Christopher Robin. I've still got all my father's books. All of Daddy's books, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was lovely. That was perfect. And you didn't falter on any of those words.
Bilal was a little boy, mischievous to the bone. Given half a chance, he'd flood his own home. He tipped over jugs. The taps flowed all day. He didn't mind at all. It was just fun and play. Mom, not to carry on in such a fashion. Stop your games, or I shall teach you a lesson. So many children have no water for their drink. So when you turn on the tap, first you ought to think. Bilal found the taps running dry. What will happen now? He let out a cry. Do you now understand? His mum sternly asked. But Dal came to realize he had been too daft.
কাজের পরে খেয়াল করে লাগিয়ে দেবে কল শুধু
It's not for wasting, for indeed it is the most priceless thing. Bilal made a promise, his mischief he will stop. He will take care not to waste a single drop.
Sort of give more money, obviously, that would be nice, but also look for these units, these places where we can have dedicated space. You know, it's so important. We're lucky in this area. We've got a congressman who deeply cares. I mean, Jerry deeply cares about the arts and always has done. But I think, you know, we all need to be diligent and keep going, and you know, thank you for all you do, Tom. I mean, I've known you a while as well, and sort of
So many years.
so many years. I mean, it's sort of, yeah, I did a degree in national parks. Oh gosh, only about 6 years ago, I got my qualification, and I was unusual in that not many parks and recreation departments have arts attached to them. More are coming, and that's what we need to, you know, art is recreation. People need to know art is recreation.
And remember that recreation,
It's not just a ball
it's
field.
not just about fun and games,
No,
but it's recreation.
yes,
When you take apart the word recreation, it's recreation.
yes,
And what
Yeah.
you're doing in that time is, whether it's arts, whether it's in athletics, whether
Yeah.
it's in a musical program, you are recreating yourself through
Yeah.
that activity.
I agree.
So it's very important
I think it is.
about what arts is
It
bringing
absolutely
to
is.
the community.
It's,
We're very-
and I think that's something that we all need to remember, but keep diligent about and keep moving forward. And, you know, I'm excited to hear your news, so I really am, because that was something important. So, you know, but yeah, I moved to a place in Herndon, which is those of you who've been, Carol's been up to visit with me. It's an exciting little building, and it was going to be pulled down, and I got the news 2 weeks before I was due to move out, and it be pulled down. I've got another 2 years there, so the developers have changed their mind. But in the meantime, we've got developers like Boston Properties who now we're negotiating with a 60,000 square foot proffer, which is I think what you were talking about earlier, to build a new arts centre on the metro line. There's another one that's going to span Loudoun and Fairfax County called Rivanna, and that's an innovation station. So they're building them along metro stations as well. So, you know, we need to get a metro station coming.
People expect and want that in their community.
They do.
That's what's
They
important about it.
absolutely do. I mean, it would be nice in all those, how many students did you say moved in? 600?
About 800.
800. You see now, a nice art centre on the ground floor there would have been, just saying, just throwing it out there. But I still think that Main Street, that empty unit on the you know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I think that would be
That would be
a
perfect.
wonderful place. And that's not just saying.
I think from like 2002 had a children's art class. And we have it at the Main Street Child Development Center.
Yep.
Once a month, a group of us go in and talk about an artist and then let the children create. And in years past, we have at the end of the school year brought the children up to Old Town Hall to see that grown-ups make art too. And some of them have never been in a real art gallery before, so they're very excited, they're very impressed. And I think this is very important, that children are encouraged to do art, that it's important, because in the general scheme of things it isn't. And it's pounded out of children really quickly when they make a purple cow and their teacher says, "Cows are purple."
Sure they are.
But yes, but today they are. And I tell them, you're the artist and you get to say.
Well, I run a project called, because I do have a very diverse population, called Arts on the Run. And I go out and take art, I take a little art truck out with me. And I go to the farmer's market, anywhere I'm allowed to set up a table and a tent and take out my art stuff, whatever it be, I take it out every week. And I'll tell you, it's amazing what
Children
kids
love
get up
that.
to. They do love it.
Love it.
But you've got to go, I've seen in our community, you've got to go out. I mean, we've got, all our schools are Title I schools. They are really, you know, very, there is a lot of poverty in Herndon, a lot of poverty. We do a shoe drive. We've happened to have a very good supervisor, John Faust, and John is very mindful of everything. And yeah, Arts on the Run is great. And I get funding for it too, because, so think about that. You can get funding, you know, if you want to, you're talking about your programming in the school, absolutely. That's exactly what we want to hear when we give out grants. Exactly what we want to hear. Different countries, actually. I have one artist in Arts Herndon, and she's Russian. Her name's Yelena, and she's amazing. You name it and she can do it. As I've found with an awful lot of artists, I am not an artist, let me be very blunt here now. I can barely put a piece of paper and a pencil together and do the same thing. Please don't mind, I hate.
No, I would love to.
But when I see everybody else doing things, I'm so in awe of all of you. I really am. And I hope someday some of it might rub off on me, but you know, I'm not sure. But Yelena is Russian. During COVID, I did a project called a poetry trail, which meant I got poetry in from people and I put it in shop windows all around town. Sorry, I put it in the windows of my gallery, and then I went out and found shops who were open or partially open and said, well, can I put some poetry in your window? Okay, crazy Welsh lady. Yes, you can. Of course you can, Joe. I mean, they shudder when they see me walking in. I'm sure they do. But we did. So we created a poetry trail. And this was one of the pieces. She actually gave it to me in Russian. So if anybody wants to look to see, that's the Russian. So if you'd like to follow along now, Carol, you can read it, right?
Wow, look at that.
In bloom are the streetlights' yellowish blue chrysanthemums, illuminating my undeliberate journey in the night. Underfoot, the cold and glossy puddles shine like store windows. From the consciousness of autumn comes the cold and slight sadness. The day is younger than me. He was hammering nails of stars to the sky, but fell asleep in the down blanket of darkness. Yet, earlier, he was throwing leaves under my feet to hide the light of unearthly beauty in earthly simplicity. And yesterday's leaves are burning as a warning to the leaves of today, and cloud after cloud swims from sunrise to sunset. This clear and fragile autumn whispers in the earth's ear, there is no coming back. Don't you dream, there is no coming back. And she wrote that in Moscow in 1994. And apparently the original poem is written in Russian in a rhymed iambic pentameter. Just to be, and I know Sharon will know all about that, I don't. It's, as most of you who know me know very well, I am not English, I'm Welsh. And we have, you said, oh, I didn't know that. Yes, you did. Because it's one thing I'm proudly and absolutely proud of. And obviously one of our poets is Dylan Thomas. And I belong to a Welsh society in DC, and we get together, and I last Christmas I actually did the closing prayer for our Christmas service, my very, very favourite, and it's Reverend Eli Jenkins Prayer from Under Milkwood by Dylan Thomas. Every morning when I wake, dear Lord, a little prayer I make. Oh, please do keep thy loving eye on all poor creatures born to die. And every evening at sundown, I ask a blessing on the town. For whether we last the night or no, I'm sure it is always touch and go. We are not wholly bad or good, who live our lives under Milkwood, and thou, I know, wilt be the first to see our best side, not our worst. Oh, let us see another day. Bless us this night, I pray. And to the sun we all will bow and say goodbye, but just for now.
Oh,
And it's,
wonderful.
The master artist taught me illusion. I paint flowers without petals, trees with silence, mixing darkness with light, clouds with earth. I thought peace might have a chance. The rain dries it all up. I paint blood with the hours, despair with the applause. Thank you. This one is called Color Word, and it's again related to this, am I an artist, a painter, or am I a writer? I'm always, dangling between the two, and so this is about that. Okay? A color here, a color there. Word disturbs my strokes. Word sits on my nerves and sings like fish swimming. Paint is the only way to begin. I lost some thoughts yesterday. They do get lost and mixed up in my words. I never know which is which. The blue jay is telling me, I am grey. You could make me blue on a white canvas. You could name me blue with a word, but old now, I'm not blue at all. Such is the madness of identity.
ooh, whoa.